Hey, y'all. Thanks for dropping by. It is episode 10. That's right. We're into the double digits of the love and support sessions. I'm your host, Lee, the Wayfinder, and I'm really excited. Stoked does not express how excited and keyed up energetically I feel to have as my guest today, Khaliq Sim. Khaliq Sim, you can be found on the evil Amazon as a published author. No, he is not a micro scan disc. He is a macro view kind of person. And you'll find that by taking a look at his output, whether that is his public output or his insights, which you can also find on his website, khaliqsim.com. Now, this guy, whenever I see his face, it's like coming home. I feel so warm and happy and friendly to be in connection with this human being once again. I became friends with him through a entrepreneurial program called Autonomy. That public URL for that is getautonomy.info. They also have like this thing called 19 skills that you didn't learn in school. I'm always going to be like promoting them and making shout outs to the Autonomy family because I met so many amazing people within that group of people on their Discord server and with the Autonomy course. People like himself, Khaliq Sim. I also have contact with Khaliq Sim through his Renaissance Revolution event or podcast that is now occurring twice monthly, which which is also on the Autonomy student calendar. I made mention that in the title of this, that Khaliq Sim is the poet that is, was, and shall ever be becoming. And with no further ado, I welcome him formally. Khaliq Sim, take it away. How you doing?
What's happening? That was a fantastic intro, Lee. I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm thrilled. This is like my first interview as Khaliq Sim, so it's interesting, strange, and very exciting.
All right. So I introduced the audience to your book, um, and you said that you feel a little bit strange in regards to being interviewed as Khaliq Sim. Can you tell us about why that is, or express a little bit more detail?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's never been formal. Like I never really came out formally as Khaliq Sim. So this will be like the first formal like interview or occasion. So this is hot after press, y'all. Like this is official. It happened here first. This is the premiere. So yeah, Khaliq Sim is my pseudonym. I am a big fan of Mark Twain, and I was inspired. Actually, one day I was driving from work. I was like, during the time I was the inception of the book was going, and I was like, man, I'd like to have a pseudonym, like that of Mark Twain. And I'm driving behind this truck, and there was like some sort of name or something like that on the truck, and I don't remember what it said, but it triggered something in my mind to create a pseudonym. And Khaliq Sim didn't happen that moment, but it happened later on. I was trying to mess around with different ideas. So Khaliq Sim really means Khaliq in Arabic means creative, and Sim means listener. So I played around with a bunch of ideas, and then Khaliq Sim came together, and I was like, I'm a creative listener. I am a conduit of energy, and that is exactly what I want to, you know, encapsulate in that name, and that's who this person is, who this character, this personality is, speaking with you guys right now.
Hey, I really appreciate the details on that part of your story. Thank you so much. I was wondering about that. And it's also a wonderful way to introduce yourself in brief, right? Now, you and I in the past have talked about some of the rituals that human beings throughout history have used to really connect to being human beings and their communities and the great story of human history. Choosing a name for yourself, creating your own naming ceremony, as we know some indigenous cultures or nations, First Nations do. Was it a rite of passage at all for you?
Holy shit, Lee, that's amazing. I didn't even think of it like that. I really didn't. But now that you mention it that way, man, I'm so excited. So I'm just gonna let loose on this show tonight. So talking about Rite of Passage, I'm getting ready to do a ayahuasca trip. So with that being said, um, it makes so much sense that you mentioned that, because I didn't think of it that way. And Khaliq Sim was really me trying to harness that energy. And it was probably really intuitive. It was probably beyond me. I probably didn't understand what the hell was going on at that moment. But it's coming to fruition. I'm starting to understand um, why everything happened the way it did. So to answer your question, yes, it was subconsciously. It wasn't at the moment, but now that I can reflect back on it, it was definitely a very subconscious moment. Um I was so keen and so fervent on choosing a name. I don't know why I was so keen. Like I could have just wrote it as Pablo Zambrano, but I was really inspired by Mark Twain. I was really reading a lot of his work at that time, and I was really inspired by that. And I guess I was just being moved by the spirit, moved by that energy. And man, it so happened that that name came together the way it did. And it was somewhat of a rite of a passage for me as a writer, as a creative person. Nobody knew me that in that light. So I had to create something outside of myself because it was completely different. I was literally showing everyone a different side of me that no one has ever seen. And that's another reason. So it was a rite of passage for me and a rite of passage for everyone that was getting to know me through that medium.
Hey, that's a really great answer. I realize now that when I was doing your introduction, I was flipping through these particular highlights or points or milestones that, but I wasn't screen sharing. So I'll do that now. And so you can see here, it's not just, on my own say so, but you can see for yourselves that he's on Amazon as Khaliq Sim. And he's also got his website. Where'd it go? There we go. You can also find him on khaliqsim.com. Now, the book, did it come before or after Khaliq Sim was born?
After. Good question. It came after. So this book is a compilation of 10 years worth of writing. So I didn't know this book was going to come together. Um, yeah, I didn't know it was going to come together. So Khaliq Sim came after like the manuscript. I want to say, so the manuscript wasn't completely finished at the time, but like probably sometime in the process of it, Khaliq Sim came about. I was like, man, it'll be really cool to, have this identity, to present this piece of work. So yeah, I'd say somewhere in the process it happened.
10 years seems like a magical number. There's
Oh
a movie
shit, yeah,
made
right.
with Jet Li, and his character in this movie is called Nameless, and he tells people that he devoted 10 years of his life to be unstoppable within 100 feet, something like that. If he's in a room with you, he practiced for 10 years that he can make the one sword strike that's going to take you out no matter where you are in the room. It's so reliable. And so that 10 years, did you set out to have a certain deadline or time frame, or that's just how the journey took place?
No, I was inspired. I was inspired by my mother, by my wife, Yvette, that is here joining us tonight. And so like a quarter of the book was dedicated to my wife. It was really me, in the beginning of our relationship, just working at the library. I was working at the library at the time where like a good uh, compilement of this book came together. At the library, I was a patron. I had so much time in my hand, and I was just writing love letters to my wife at that time. So a good portion of that was dedicated to her, and yeah, it was a inspiration. It was a compilation, and eventually like I started writing. So I guess you could say my muse was my wife at that time, right? And then I started getting political and spiritual, so I started adding more like my writing started morphing into different things. And then eventually, my wife and my mother, like I would share my work with them, and they inspired me like, hey, you should put this into like, a book. And I was like, really? Like, you think this is worthy of that type of material? And I got the cosign, and that's really how this happened.
Was that challenging to get the publishing there? You had the material, you had the encouragement to get it into a physical form, to pull it down from the realm of ideas down into reality. Was that challenging at all?
Um, it was fun. There was no challenge. There really wasn't any challenge besides like the monetary, or just the complexity of putting something together, not knowing how to go about it. But it really drew out a lot of creativity from me.
Right on. And it's beautiful that you mentioned that your wife, your partner, inspired you, and also that you were inspired by also your mother as well. Would you be willing to share some of the details of that experience?
Um, yeah, let's see how I can unpack that. Um, so my mother, I guess I could preface with this, right? My mother shared her poetry with me. Um, maybe Yeah, I can't remember the timeline, but she shared some poetry with me. So she was a poet as well. And this was before like I was even really writing poetry. She shared a few pieces with me. I remember there was one piece, I think I still have it somewhere, where it was like a poem that she wrote about like mirrors or reflections or something like that. And I remember I wrote it out, and I added like some like visuals, not like on the I printed it out, and I added like, oh yeah, I had like a transparent background of a mirror. And I remember that specifically. It's funny because I don't recall that until just now. And somehow that embedded in my mind, and I guess that energy, that poetic energy, like transferred through me subconsciously. And it was never something that I sought out. I didn't start writing poetry until I met my wife. So like my mother showed me that like many years before I met my wife. So it was not like after that I was triggered to do that. It was just through that medium when I met my wife that I started to transfer that energy that I found in my mother, and I found that is inside of my lineage, which is interesting enough. And it just, found its way through me. So yeah, through the process of writing and just constantly writing, I mean, I'm talking about up to date now, maybe over 500 pieces, long, short, mostly shorties, mostly like short pieces, not too epic. Like my first, so Journey Through Perception, the book that we're talking about right now, is mostly, it's epic pieces, more so epic pieces than the current book that I'm writing. Um, so yeah, just sharing all these pieces with them and getting that feedback. Like they were my biggest fans for real. Like my mother and my wife really encouraged me to do, like, this book wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And I'm really grateful for that, because poetry was never a thing. It was not a tangible thing with handles for me. I had no, conception, or even, uh, I didn't have any type of need or want to explore that. And it was because of them that happened, and it was a really amazing process. And I know they enjoyed it. I know my mother enjoyed it. And I still don't think they understand the um the gratitude and how grateful I am for that, because I'm working on a second book now, like it continues. So their impact definitely moved me, and is you know constantly uh moving through me.
Wild. Now, I cannot say in honesty that I've read all of your work. The most recent bit of your work that I have read, although I will tell the audience that I have been experienced some of his work through his Renaissance Revolution podcast live Zoom event, where he's showcased some of his work. which not only includes a written word, but also visualizations, also includes music. He weaves together different media to really have a greater impact, and then he will discuss his work or encourage his audience to comment on what they've experienced of it. And so I did read what I would think of as your latest piece, which is So You Want a Label. And the very first label that's mentioned is the religious label. How does that connect with you, that particular label today?
Nice, nice. I love that you did your homework. I appreciate that. That's so great, so awesome. Yeah, man, religion plays an immense role in my story. Um, hopefully one day you'll check out the intro to my book. Um, and I'll probably say I'll send it over to you. I'll send you I'll send something to you. So in that intro, yeah, it's like this really epic piece about me, like my journey and religion had a big. So I've tasseled with religion for a long time. Like I literally got kicked out of my, church, almost you could say. So like I'm a heretic, in that respect. So religion is a big part of my evolution. So like before I became political and spiritual, like that I associate myself with today, I was very much religious. I went to Christian school. My sisters went to Christian college. So religion played a big role in my story. And for a while, like after I was religious, I turned atheist, for a while. So I was really like, you know, freaking sowing a lot of discourse in the religious space, and then I turned like agnostic, and now I'm on the realms of spirituality, and I have a lot more reverence and respect for it now than I did before. I was wild, once I kind of took that red pill, I was going out there just like doing some wild stuff, man. I was on Facebook just, really doing some, I guess what they would call blasphemous, like going ham and just going nuts. And, you know, uh, I don't necessarily apologize for that. I don't have regrets for that because that's just a phase that I had, but I do understand its place and I do appreciate the lessons because I still like nowadays, uh, I use a lot of its metaphors in my conversation, and it really does help me put handles on some of these ideas, philosophical and spiritual ideas that I have. So I do appreciate the time that I spent. Like I read the whole Bible. Like I really read. Like I was really about that life. Um, I was gonna be a pastor. Like for real, I was gonna be like a
Wow.
preacher. Yeah, I pretty much devoted my life type situation. Um, and So I have a lot of reverence for it now that I get to think about it from hindsight, and it played a big role. And if you look at, so there's one of my graphics that I have is I forget what it's called. What is the guy that has like a bunch of hands? It's like a Leonardo picture.
The
Leonardo da Vinci.
Vitruvian Man.
Yes, there it is. So I have a graphic where it's that man, and that's like my graphic, my pretty much my brand, right? It's that man, and around him is a snake. The snake that eats itself. I forget what that's called too. Maybe
Ouroboros.
yes, yes. I know either you or Bootsy was gonna be able to have that one easy. That was a layup. That was a dunk, an alley oop right there for you, Lee. So yeah, so it basically there's a lot of esoteric information. There it is. Yeah. So there's a lot of esoteric information in that graphic. Thanks for bringing that up. Now you guys can really see it. Yeah, you'll be able to see it better if you click it. That's right. Let's see if it comes up. Yeah, if you go down, scroll down a little bit. Yeah, you could click on the left graphic on the left side, or you could just do that. Yeah. So yeah, you see that there. Yeah, you see
Please
that there.
explain. It's really interesting. I was gonna ask you about it, so I'm glad you brought it up. Please go on.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so happy I get to explain this and flesh it out. So this I conceived this whole idea. I had this idea. I didn't design it. I had someone design it from It might say it somewhere down here, but anyway, that's besides the point. So inside of this is really my journey. So journey through perception lives inside of this graphic. So if you see everything here, this was really my journey. Like you see, one of the icons is the atheist icon. Then you have the hermetic philosophy icon, which I was in a school for hermetic philosophy, or a brotherhood, if you may. And you have, I was black Israelite for a little bit, so I have the Star of David there, and I have a whole, Christian, the cross emblem, and just a whole bunch of these concepts that I've either dabbled in or am interested in, and this whole graphic pretty much encompasses my relationship with uh, religion and the many concepts that live in that. So I wanted to conceptualize that and put it on a graphic and really hone in that spirit of the journey through perception. Like that whole brand, that whole label, that whole conception is my story of um, battling and, you know, um, just reflecting and going through this journey through life. So yeah, if I think I answered that somehow.
I saw some Arabic writing, I believe, at the top at the 12 o'clock position.
Yes.
Have you also borrowed or found useful time spent studying or being experiencing the world of Islam?
I have not. But so the Arabic writing there is Khaliq Sim in Arabic, right? So Khaliq, in Arabic. So so that writing you see at 12 o'clock is Khaliq Sim in Arabic. Thank you for pointing that out. But I do have a lot of really great friends. Some of my best friends are from the Islam, from the Islam religion and whatnot. And I grew up in the Bronx. What do you call that part of the Bronx? Not really sure. I can't remember. But there's a lot of Muslim people in that neighborhood, so I grew up with a lot of Muslim folk, and it's a very dear to me. I never really dabbled or looked into it, but I do have friends in it, so it was very close to me. Like I ate the food, I smelled the herbs, I knew the culture, I've been to a few weddings, so like it is kind of like uh kind of like a cousin, a close cousin to me, especially because it's, Abrahamic. So it's very, very close to, I mean, I was Black Israelite. So that's pretty much like somewhat of a very, it's a lot of customs, a lot of traditions. It was very hardcore. Black Israelite is very hardcore, you know, uh, kind of sister of the Abrahamic, like Judaism is, is not Islam, but uh, yeah, Judaism is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
It also makes me think of the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali,
it comes from that.
right?
Yeah,
And it's so much a part of, and that history never really went. It doesn't go away, and it's still in movies and things today. I was watching a movie not too long ago. It was called the Black Judas or something like that, and it
yeah,
was talking about what was going on within the Black Panther Party. And this one particular, the protagonist of the movie was going through situations, and he was trying to make alliances with all these other groups and movements, and then he got targeted because he was all about love and cooperation, and not so much like exploiting people in a very difficult situation. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I heard about that movie. I heard a few people mention it and recommend it. And from what I do know, I don't know all the history of like Black Israelite and whatnot, but there is I mean, it does have a lot of roots in Harlem, in New York, as far as I understand, and my understanding is quite limited. But there is a lot of roots within the Islam and the Panther movement and a lot of these like Islam Brotherhood and stuff like that, Islamic Brotherhood and things of that nature. So I imagine it stems from that. I can't put my money on that, but yeah, I imagine there's a lot of close links between all of that.
Well, I looked it up. I'll show you what it is, just because I
Ooh,
mentioned it,
awesome.
and when you mention things, people want to get more information. So take a look at that. See, what is that? Does that speak to you at all?
Yeah, that looks like me right there. I see myself in that image. Like I was so devoted, not to put myself like I'm some like figure or whatever, but I was a very devoted. I was very much like I wore the clothes, like, and I could say that like I was really about it, and that's why I went through that journey, you know. But I think the concept of trying to bring all these different um, conceptions and different idioms or synonyms of religion um, together is something really interesting, and I do think that's a beautiful thing to do. Like I guess that's kind of what the graphic is saying, right? Like I'm trying to bring all those concepts in one. They're just different versions of the same story, so to speak. And I'm really interested in the movie. I mean, I wasn't really interested so much before. I don't really jive or dive into like TV land a lot like that now. But if someone that I hold dear and respect mentions it, I definitely try to keep my eye on it.
It's interesting that they use the word Judas,
Mm,
and then they use the word Messiah, and they don't use Jesus, right?
mm, good
Like
point.
many people, I was raised by my parents and in the not public school system, Catholic school system. So I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and so when I see Judas, that connects for me immediately to Jesus Christ, the Last Supper, the betrayal,
Mm,
the time in the garden, the 30 pieces of silver, Judas
yeah.
committing suicide for what he did with the heinous act, this kind of thing. Um, Referencing that movie in particular, what I like about it is what I've always liked about the Black Panther story, and that was children guaranteed food and breakfast every day.
Mhm.
Now, recently on Autonomy, there was a guest presenter who's now starting a course about community, and he talked about how as a member of a team of 6 people, they were able to create and sustain a whole range of programs that helped inner city families, inner city people in Canada, and then later on got contacted by the Prime Minister of Canada's office, and then after that happened, were later on demonized and had their program shut down because they were getting positive attention for their effectiveness. And
Mm.
he learned that 6 people can really get a lot done in a large city, and that the government must, by its choice, not want to get things done with all the resources that they have available to them. And so that's why I like the Black Panther story, because anytime people are taking care of themselves, making their community healthier or stronger, I love that. That makes me feel hopeful.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. And I'm looking forward to check out some of that material myself. Considering like freedom cells and trying to figure out how to uh get more cohesive and work together and figure out how to, just collaborate and maintain sustainability, within a close knit local community. I'm really interested in those type of things. That's like core values for me.
Your piece is connected to agorism and perhaps is a submission for a agorist platform. And you just mentioned cells, freedom, and community. So, as you're walking the earth today, where you find yourself geographically located, what's going on, or what does it feel like today is happening in regards to people choosing freedom or moving towards freedom, more freedom?
Um, there's a lot going on. I've been a part of Freedom Cells specifically for several years, but it didn't start picking up until, well, at least from my vision, or at least where I'm located right now in Florida, it didn't really start picking up until like August or something like that. And it's been picking up steam, and then especially after the Greater Reset, that whole presentation that put a lot of eyes and attention on it. And I'm actively trying to help organize in my group, um, and I'm just really thrilled to collaborate with that. That's just one facet of the community and collaboration, like beyond freedom cells. Like we have a homeschooling community here, that I'm active with and a part of. Then we have the autonomy community, that is more of a virtual type community. So there's just so many different, and it reminds me of what James Corbett mentioned as far as like survival currency, like agorism and all that kind of translates to having, network marketing. Like that's a currency as well. That's wealth as well. And I think um, those are some of the things that I'm really interested in and looking forward to uh, collaborate and organize more into. But it's been hot over here in Florida, man. I mean, Florida is a hot spot anyway, so there's a lot of people moving out here. There's a lot of activity going on, and I have like our freedom cell grew from like, what was it, like 6 or whatever it is, to like 20 people, 26 people. So it's getting pretty deep, and trying to figure out ways to maintain a good cohesion and harmony and things of that nature. So that's why I'm really interested. When I saw that go up on the when I got the email from Autonomy saying that there was going to be a presentation like that, I was like, yeah, I got to keep my eyes on that, because I'm always like the Freedom Cell, the Greater Reset uh, presentation and event that was really eye opening. I learned some things about organizing that I'm really interested to implement, and this is new territory for me. So uh, you have the people that really are active and want to do things, and there's a bunch of those active people in my group, and I'm just trying to bring something to the table with the organization, and some of the skills that I've been learning to Autonomy is making me valuable to my group here. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity to um, use the skills that I've been learning.
Do you think that we are in a really different situation from, let's say, okay, 1970? At the end of So You Want a Label, right? You talk about the revolution will not be televised, right? And that is Gil Scott Heron, 1970. It's a poem and song, right? Or how familiar are you with his work?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that piece. I'm not too familiar with his work, but I'm familiar with that piece.
Right. And I think the funniest thing that it made me chuckle is at the very beginning of it, he says, you will not be able to stay home, brother.
He said some
Right.
really solid stuff in that piece, man. It's like funny. It's amazing what, like, how poetic and how he was able to add humor, even though he was so serious in the piece. He added some really like funny stuff that you could chuckle to, but he was really trying to ram this message home, and he did a very effective job with that. And it's an iconic piece for that reason. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. What else does he say? He's like, the revolution. Oh, it will not, your, gosh, what does he say? Something like, your smile, or no, gosh,
He says a
I
bunch.
can't remember right now.
I'm trying to
You know what
remember.
he says? He's like, oh yeah, um, the revolution will not be brought to you by improvement of your sexual, your mouth will not generate more sexual appeal or something like that. And
Yeah,
he's
something
not
like
by
that.
Coca-Cola or
Oh, right,
Xerox,
right.
and he names all these corporations. And I just, I think that's where we can recognize great work. And so years pass. So that was in 1970. Okay,
Mhm.
50 years, over 50 years, and people still love it. And there's no one who was like pushing at me to like buy it, or hitting me with ads on when I'm traveling the net. Nothing like that. It was you mentioning his work, and then I went to go check that out. I listened to the song like 3 times yesterday. And I
Nice.
just,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a classic, man. That's something that always stays in the rotation and gets you pumped up. I remember I did a open mic one time, and it was called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." It was a really cool open mic out there in Harlem. It brought out some really great talent. I believe it was called "The Revolution," something like that. It was definitely something of that same caliber. I think I have a upload of doing sharing a piece from that open mic, and it always brings some really some. I mean, I've had some really great experiences at that open mic.
Right on. How did you get involved with that? Did you have to overcome what some people describe as stage fright?
Man, I'm just now getting it. I'm just now getting a little bit more comfortable with it, but oh my god, you have no idea. My armpits, like, I mean, well, that's just kind of like a a byproduct of it, right? But I was, man, sweating like crazy. I still do. I mean, if you guys could probably zoom in, you'll probably see, like, I got the stains and whatnot on my shirts. But yeah, the stage fright and the anxiety, that's always been a thing for me, man. It's always been a thing for me. And the so my my saving grace, I would say, or one of the things that's really helped me, is this community within autonomy. Because before, I didn't have as much interactions with people, and I think that's what helps. Like, the more interactions you have with other people, the more you can judge, posturing and people's nuances and stuff like that. So being able to be around people actively, because it's fun, you would think like I was accustomed to those things, because I've done a few open mics and things of that nature for a while, and I never really got used to it, and I'm still probably jumping ahead of myself. Like, I could still, like, if you were to, even when I do my hosting, the show Renaissance Revolution, I still have those jitters in the beginning, but I learned to step out of my way, so I still have those, but I know how to manage it a lot more because of the experiences that I've been having as of late. And it's more fun now. Like, before, it was like a traumatic experience, and that's exactly how I would explain it. Like, it was very traumatic for me. Now it's just like, okay, I just gotta see how to shake it off. And those are some techniques that I also learned from the Parhesia course. That has helped me as well, from Benny Will's course. I was in that beta course. If you check some of that out, you'll see what I'm talking about with anxiety, and that was me really, like, fighting through it. And I'm glad I was able to have experiences like that, and these experiences that I have, and I'm really excited to continue pushing through that anxiety, because, to be honest with you, from my standpoint and my perspective, like, it's just about the amount of tools that you have, the tool sets that you have in your bag. That's really the only way you'll get through that, from my viewpoint.
I would like to ask you about your relationship with your wife, because in our world today, I really want to share information or um, highlight people who have healthy, beautiful relationships. Because if you are a media consumer or you follow news outlets or propaganda outlets, whatever you want to call them, there's just so much bad press about human interaction, whether that be war zones or corruption, this kind of thing. So, would you be willing to tell us, how you met? Did it occur while you were a librarian?
Uh, so yeah, let's dig into this. So I met my wife on the bus, on the BX 55 in the Bronx. Doing my daily sales ritual. That was my ritual. Like, at the time, I tell my wife all the time. I tell the story. At the time I met my wife, like, I had a whole, like, log of numbers, like, that week, and literally it was just like, okay, I got her number. What I'm saying? So, like, the day I was getting ready, the day I called my wife, right? Like, I got her number. I spit game. I'm from New York. You know what I mean? What did you expect? So, the day I went to call her, no, funny thing, like, I didn't even call her first. Like, I called a bunch of, like, other numbers first, and none of them answered. So it might have been a wrong number. I don't know. But so, I had called her, and yeah, it jumped off from there. We met on the bus, and New York Transit bus, and we've been together for, it's about to be 12 years, I think. It's gonna be 12 years soon. And yeah, man, it was the beginning of our relationship, like the first stage, like there's I'd like to break it up into like three parts, maybe, you know, three parts to date. Um, and the third, the first part of it was like, you know, that stage, that honeymoon stage, so to speak. And then there was a lot of there was a lot of work that wasn't done. There was a lot of shadow work. Like we just started doing the shadow work within the third stage of our relationship. So there was a lot of turbulence. There was a lot of, a lot of stuff from my end. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding your uh, dynamic, your relationship dynamic with your parents. And once I understood why I was acting some of the ways, uh, some of the ways I was acting in my relationship, or like being able to have handles from my relationships with my parents, I was able to understand a lot of things, and that really helped out. So I think like the shadow work is like the saving grace for our relationship, because there was some really, turbulent times. And there was some times where, many times where I was ready to, you know ready and willing, like like half, out the door. um because that is, something that I saw. That's how my father was. My father was in and out, in and out of the house, with many, he was with many women, you know and things of that nature. So I kind of held to that kind of story. And then once I started doing a lot of the shadow work, and my wife as well, like we started uncovering a lot of stuff. And even though we made it through like those 12 years, like it was like making it through all the indoctrination, like coming to this point that I've been here. Like there's so much indoctrination and like stuff that I had to unravel and unpackage and let go of. And that was just a whole nother level in my relationship dynamics, and understanding a lot of these concepts and learning how to be authentic in relationships. Because in my parental relationships, like, in my parental relationship with my parents, like, being authentic was not something that was promoted. So I had to learn that. That's why the reason I wrote so much, this is great. We're getting into it, right? The reason I wrote so much to my wife was because I was a better communicator through writing. I did not know how to communicate with my wife. I did not know how to communicate with people, you know, on a FaceTime, face-to-face communication, because it was not something that emotional intelligence and those things was not something that I was um, privy to. Um, so that was some of the things that I had to figure out. And yeah, it's not pretty. A lot of the stuff is not pretty, but we've made it through a lot of stuff, and I'm so proud of us, and I'm so proud of where we've gone to, and the level of uh, authenticity that has come through a lot of the shadow work is just like, I'm so happy, and I'm so thrilled, and I'm so blessed now. Like I was not that way for a good portion of my relationship, and that's because of a lot of the programming, all that Disney stuff, and all that, romantic movies. I hated romantic movies, man, because they just pissed me off. It was like, like they pissed me off, because it was like, yeah, this is BS, you know. And now I do understand these dynamics, and I understand them better, and I'm still getting better at it. I'm not by any means the standard at the moment, but it's we've been doing a lot of work, a lot of self work within the last several years, the last third, the third part of our relationship right now. And that has been really helpful. And since Owen is here, man, like, outwitting the devil and the Kabbalion, like these things have been even like helping me even more with the philosophies and the ideas to keep me in check, to make sure I'm not drifting in my relationships, and allowing like some of these demons and these past things to allow me to drift and things of that nature. So yeah, that's a big one, and I definitely want to touch on that in my next coming book, because there's a lot of darkness and shadow and stuff that I need to unpackage, and I need to revisit, and I want to like, you know, hone in.
because of listening to you and other people that you and I come into contact with and we gain and benefit from and we learn from, not only authors but people that are alive today that are our friends or that we feel warm and connected to. um, I've learned, that it seems as though that shadow definitely has a purpose, a useful purpose to for us, and that maybe it's holding things until we're ready, or there's powers there, or benefits, or things that we're not going to use all the time, but we got to use the right tool for the job. Now, when you talk about turbulence in your relationship, is there something you would want to say to someone, if there's anyone out there listening who's going through turbulent times in their relationship? Something
Mm.
maybe you wish that someone had said to you, or just something that made it all right.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. Hmm. Honestly, like a lot of the work and the stuff that I've come to understand now is because of the people that I have around me. You know, the mentors, and like, so like, find yourself some good, like, some excellent people to emulate, you know, and to ask questions. And like, oh my god, like the amount of recommendations and book recommendations and the advice and the mentorship that I've gotten has helped me do the work. You know, I've gotten so many recommendations, and I've like taken literally a year. Like the last year has been like a lot of digging deep into my uh shadow, that realm and things of that nature. So like, definitely having some good um counsel is helpful. um I recommend checking out what's her name, Teal Swan. She has a page, a YouTube page. She has some really good like relationship advice and things of that nature. I highly recommend that. And doing the work, doing the work is like, individual work is extremely important. And both parties, I recommend both parties do that. Especially because we're in a very dysfunctional world. We're in a very dysfunctional world, and I don't judge anybody. I have no judgment towards anybody in any relationships. And I hope and wish the same towards me, because I'm going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. I made mistakes in the past, and I still, whatever it may be. And just because understanding, like, understanding the dysfunction and the trauma that has been just, you know uh just throughout our world, is the reason why there's so much ravid uh divorce and dysfunction and things of that nature. So yeah, I think that I hit some things on there. And yeah, Teal Swan, I've been binging her stuff, man. Like, she's solid, and there's so many other recommendations I could probably give, if I have a minute to think about it. But yeah, I think hopefully I hit that. Hopefully I answer that question, and that's useful for anyone. Find some good people, man. Find some good people. Find a good community to help you in those, because it's a lot of work. You're not gonna be able to do it on your own for sure.
Hey, that's great. And I believe you did make some really good points there. You did. And what you're saying about seeking not necessarily experts, but people that have gone through things and that have something to offer in regards to specific tools or techniques, or let's just say call them technology. It's not just, a hammer in your hand that's technology, but it's a way to operate your human beingness, your body, your mind, your mental, your physical self, how you spend your time. And oh, there's something you just said I thought was really it's just slipped it away. Gosh, I guess sometimes there's so much going on.
Let me say something, so you could think about it, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, the second book that I'm writing right now, um Journey Through Perception, Diary of the Insignificant. Like, I'm really gonna dig into that. Relationships and just the shadow work, and just digging into a lot of these concepts, because I feel like that's part of my purpose, to help in that journey. So I definitely And even the first book also has a lot of that, a lot of these concepts and these ideas. I'm battling with these ideas in my head, and I'm spitting them out on paper. And I think having some different forms of mediums to go about it is really helpful. And poetry was really helpful for me. And I'd love to help anyone in that realm. And that's somewhat why I'm doing it.
Right
Hopefully,
on.
you're able to grab that thought. If not, yeah,
Right on. You did.
awesome.
And so the analysis that many people make, and I've repeated these words myself more than once, is that family, relationships, community, government, local organizations, town, country, school, being weaponized to divide, destroy, traumatize, abuse, milk, or profit from human beings, rather than allowing people to naturally profit and benefit themselves only, and then choosing to benefit the people around them in their community, instead having a paradigm where it's meant to withdraw or vacuum up the value through a lot of the pain and suffering that we see in the world today. But when we recognize those things, perhaps that's another aspect of the shadow, is recognizing as well that they help us identify the things that are powerful and healthy. And so if someone is trying to destroy the family, that should tell you as well, hey, that's also the information that goes along with it, is that the family is valuable. Healthy relationships are valuable. Good relationships, geographically close to where you are valuable. Otherwise, people wouldn't attack them, go after them.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's very well put. There's a lot of value in what you just said. And if we had that, if we had those a really good dynamic and function and culture, that culture is a whole nother thing, and that's one of the reasons they want to destroy it, because there is a culture between the feminine, the masculine, and all these things that the more they chip away, the easier it is to divide us and things of that nature. So that is very much important, and that is very much something of my core value, something I hold dear to me, even more so now that I've been doing the work. And trying to be authentic is very much important to me, in that same regard as well.
Do you have anything today that you'd be willing to share with us from your work, from your body of work?
Um, sure. Let's see. Um, off the cuff, off the head, no, but I'm on my desktop, so we could swim through real quick. Let me see. Um, you know
I'll
what?
say to the
Let's
audience that while he's doing that, um, I am going to open up the floor after he has chosen to share something, if he wishes,
yeah,
to the audience. If I'm sure some of you have maybe some burning questions or commentary on what Khaliq and I have been talking about today. So just hold with us for a few more minutes, and then
yeah. You know what? I'm gonna if you don't mind, I'll read the intro. It's one of my
let
favorite.
me make sure. Let's see if I can. If do you want to? Do you need to share a screen?
I
I
have
should have made
access.
sure that that was happening.
I have access. Let's see. Do you see it?
Good.
Yeah.
All
So this
right.
is so this is the
It's all
cover.
about freedom.
Amen. So this is the cover for the book, Journey Through
Love it.
Perception. As you could see, it's a
Love it.
man in a cave, finding his way out, so to speak. That was the whole visual that I had in my mind, and Lulu is the publisher that helped me out with that, and they were able to encapsulate that very beautifully. So thank you for that. Let's see. Let's go this way. Journey Through Perception. This is the it's a little lengthy. Let's see. Yeah, it's about. Let's see if we can get through this. So this is Journey Through Perception. This is the intro to my book, and I think this will bring some of the stuff home, what I was talking about, and I'll just jump right into it. Let me take a little swig real quick.
Right on.
All right, so
I knew this would work out beautifully because you're a
amen.
beautiful human being. Go for it, man.
Magic is gonna happen with you, Lee. Magic is happening here, and thank you. I'm really thrilled. I'm so happy we got to make this happen, and I'm so glad. Like this was off the fly, guys. Like like I jumped in here like a thief in the night type thing. So yeah, let's dig into this. So it goes, follow me by imagining a young man putting together the broken pieces of a mirror. Follow this fragile mind through its strong passions, stronger addictions, and little direction. Follow me down the rabbit hole of a Sagittarius. What was perceived initially was through the lens of the inexperienced. Nature subjected its impulses while authority inflicted its dictation. Consistently intimidated by society's cultures, I had not known the formulation of original ideas. Like hungry vultures, ego driven characters picked my brain, rearranged my consciousness, and retracted my identity. Driven insane by the lack of structure, I had no clue I was being manufactured for consent. I had no idea I was not exclusive to the world's elusive ways. I was a statistic of a parasitic energy that was created by my ancestors. Early adolescence was left without the essence of growth. It was left without the essence of evolution. For isn't that the essence of life? I was left misguided. I was left uninspired. My pleasant thoughts were that of being saved from a lake of fire. My every thought was crafted in antiquated literature which devoted itself to the suppression of true enlightenment. My addictions were handed to me by my own kin without instructions as to how to moderate. My talents and interests were undiscovered like an undercover double agent. My devotion was harnessed in truth, and that was focused on fables, focused on the meaning of life without consulting with philosophy. Having all the answers led me on the road of autonomy, quote unquote. Graciously, religion taught me how not to be. My passion was uncalibrated, my desires were dashed in unhealthy stimulation. These desires haunt me into my adulthood. My childhood was a blur because my pillars were unpolished. Emotionless, I was left numb from the abuse laid out before me. I witnessed the seeds of corruption spread across every direction, which harvested disharmony. The corruption abducted my nature and postponed my activation. My idols were invisible characters that gave me no counsel. Finally, the transition away from childhood began the process of infancy. I began to engage with expression, and this started my journey through perception. A battle of direction rifted through this new inception. Common knowledge became abnormal. My family and peers realized the person they once knew was being shed before their eyes. At this point in my focus, ego became my cloak. I was soaked in pride, for I had been adopted into some secret knowledge. Religion was now a punchline, and somehow I monopolized the truth. What I didn't realize was that this was the plan all along. In the process, along came the antidote to these notes, a woman driven by destiny to complete our identity. My flame was lit by Venus, for she was universal alignment, while this was the assignment from inception. Unfortunately, we were rotten to the core, although what was forthcoming was refrigerated for a later meal. My high tower came down crashing by the babbles of politics, uncertainty, and insecurity. Manipulated by political coercion, I became the mascot of a vindictive onslaught, namely, years of potential devoted to the reform of society. This misdirected me in such a way that I was distanced from my own salvation, my own sovereignty. Disconnected and vulnerable, I became the unhealthy cycle I once exposed. Imposed by labels, I realized I did not truly understand the system. Eclipsed by my own thoughts, I realized I was not in control. Misguided by my tainted definitions of love, I was incapable of affection. This was no ordinary epiphany. This was the breakthrough that led me to a universal preview. My atmosphere of devotion was sincere, but not fueled for harmonic motion. Guided by my convictions, I was destined to conquer my addictions. Years of internalized reflections prepared me for the dawn of light, a light that triggered a shift of consciousness. Welcome to my journey.
Right on. Right on. Hey, I've read more than a few books in my life, and I either skipped the forward or I started the forward. I was like, man, what a waste of my time. I'm gonna go right into the meat of the book. But I gotta say, that is the best forward I've ever heard, I've ever read. And what a treat, what a treasure to hear it in your own voice, not just your words, but you hear you read it yourself and the whole thing. You didn't just pick a cherry pick a phrase or a paragraph even, but the whole thing. And I've never heard of such a forward before. It's like this massive prose. It's like this huge poem in the forward. So gosh, I gotta say, the rest of the book must it's just going up from there. Just
Yeah, I'm so happy I was able to do that. It's the first time I've ever like actually read it out, in an interview or anything like that to anyone. And it's here for the future, for the present, for the current, and I'm so glad. It's one of my favorite pieces. It encapsulates the book, and it's probably the best part of the book. The entire book is great, but that part right there is the whole journey in a nutshell. Yeah, there was a lot to unpack there. I talked a lot about addiction and things of that. And I'm gonna keep it real, man. Like I was addicted to pornography, dude. Like I have a piece in my inside the book where I talk about that, not explicit.
wow.
I have another piece in my next book that I talk about that as well. And I'm glad to say that this is something that is behind me. I'm past that. It was very tough for me to express that, but I think there's something in there where I can help other people, get past that judgment, get past that hurdle. Like I was 8 years old. What was I, 12 years old the first time my father gave me like a graphic article magazine? You know what I mean? Like I was 8 or something like that. He was like, "Here, boy, don't tell your mom I gave you this." And so when I talk about like, I didn't like, I was handed my addiction without knowing how to moderate. Like that's what happened. Like it was like, "Here, bro, here, boy, take this," and that was all over my house. So it was no wonder I became entrapped and embezzled in that addiction, for a long time. So yeah, that's
And
just
yet
one facet of that.
and yet you did not allow that to chain you or to keep you in bondage. You freed yourself from that, and then you made a decision and you acted on having a beautiful relationship and working on that beautiful relationship and working on yourself, identifying, taking a look at those things that were maybe in the past not so easy for you to look at. I think that's a fine example for any human being. You know, a survivor, we have to survive ourselves, not only all the stuff's going on in our environment or the family and stuff like that, but our own actions. We have to be able to. That's interesting. I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah, yeah, it's real, man.
Um, hey, audience, I'm sure some of you would love to interact with this. Like I said before, this beautiful human being, Khaliq Sim. Anyone out there? What do you got to say to this great guy?
Hey, man, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And it's awesome to hear more of your story because as soon as we talked the first time, I was like, man, we got a lot of in common. I don't even know from the Christian journey to just the, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to say extreme. That's like the wrong word, but just the willingness to just jump in deeply into ideas and things. So I definitely resonate with that. And the Christianity thing too, because I was going to be a preacher myself. What got you into writing poetry to get to release stuff?
To like release to actually release like content.
Yeah, or just as, I mean, well, when you write, is it therapeutic? Is it
Oh,
to teach, or what's the motivation there?
I think you hit it on the nail right there, Owen Bootsy. Yeah, it's so definitely therapy for sure. Because like I said before, um, communication was very foreign to me, and I found an avenue where I can actually express the thoughts that I had in my head. Because I had all the thoughts in there; they were always there. I just didn't know how to put it out. I'm one of those people that walks away from a conversation like, "Damn, man, there's a million things I could have said." And poetry is just that avenue where I'm able to put it on paper. And then, so yeah, the first point would definitely be therapy. Second point would definitely be to, it's just my means. I always had this like feeling. I guess that's why I wanted to be a pastor, right, or something like that. Like there was something bigger than me. Like there was this calling, something that I wanted to do, and in a purpose that I wanted to help people. And it was interesting enough that like poetry became that like avenue. And it's just one avenue for me, and it's one of my favorite avenues because it comes so effortlessly. Thanks for the question, man. That was solid. And yeah, I'm so glad to, like, that's what this is all about. Like I just want to reach those people that I could relate to, and I know the story is relatable. Like this is such a relatable story. Addiction, religion, questioning life, like that's just the epic story, and I just wanted to encapsulate that in the only way that I know how to do it.
I'm really glad you said that, that you understand, or that people will relate to your story, because that also puts a light of appreciation that you have for yourself, right? You must have realized as you went through your life journey that you were worth it. You were worthy, and you came to have some appreciation of who you are and what you've been through. And I think that comes out in how you represent yourself and how you talk about some of these topics, and especially things in regards to your own personal story.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It's I didn't always have that. I always carried myself with this like overwhelming like yearn, but I always had this struggle with low self-esteem and a lot of these things. So I had it, but then like it wasn't until recently where I'm like kind of getting beyond that and getting out of my way, and like finally really being able to broadcast that message without that side of me that is constantly you know playing double dutch, or just trying to constantly just be in my way of trying to put this message out.
You mentioned mentors and finding good mentors. Do you have any tips? Like I have a lot on the internet and stuff too. But I remember like several years ago, I was like, man, I just need a mentor. If somebody could just take me under their wing and tutelage me, I need tutelage. And I never really found one in real life. I found a lot of people on the internet, and that take their course or something like that. And really, I'd say probably until I found autonomy, it was really hard to find people who understood my values. So, any tips regarding that, as far as where to look and how to maybe conjure up a bit of a mentor?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was the same thing for me, man. Like it wasn't like I always heard people talk about mentors. Like it was always this like, like this I don't even know how to put it, but like I would hear people say that, yeah, my mentor, and I'm like, where are people getting? Like, is there like a place where I could find these people? Is it like a Craigslist? Like everybody keeps
Right.
talking about mentors. Like where the hell? Like, now I find myself saying that now. So I'm a part of that, class where I'm like, yeah, my mentor, I have mentors, and people don't even know that they're my mentor. You know what I'm saying? Like one of you guys in here could be someone that I claim as my mentor, and you don't even know it. I'm out here like, yeah. My mentor, this guy told me this and whatnot. And I'm always one of those dudes that I go to my job and I drop a quote, right? And I'll say like, a wise man once told me, and like, who the hell is this wise man? I don't even know who he is. I'm just like, I'm trying to finesse life. Like, I know what I'm talking about. But in regards to advice in that avenue, um, yeah, man. Um, I'd like to say extending your network is definitely, because you're never really gonna have one person. It's a whole collection of people, and books are like, they're not like a tangible person, but I found so much value in reading especially in this last year. Like my book log is unbelievable, and the recommendations. I've been listening to your show, Lee. I have like at least 4 or 5 books that's come out of your show. I forget, there was some on like Taoism and stuff like that, and all types of other like concepts. But yeah, books. Uh, reading a lot is definitely an avenue. You know, and putting yourself out there and constantly extending your network is just that's just really trying to extend your brain. It's like having that brain model that Richard talks about and shows us often, like being able to have that network and extend your understanding into different ethers and different people. That's the way to do it. Like that's the way it's been working for me, and I'm constantly trying to figure that out and extend that. And autonomy has helped me with that. Autonomy and freedom cells, and like constantly building my networks. And yeah, that's I guess that's the little proof, the pudding for me.
Buddha was sitting with his disciples, and one of them asked a question. He said, "Teacher, are friends having friends half of the way?" And he said, "Hey!" He got upset. Buddha got upset, believe it or not. And he's like, "Hey, don't say that. Friends are the whole of the way."
Wow.
And so, what you said about finding people, extending your network, I think that for me, that's truth. That's real truth. That's real wisdom in that, and that's really encouraging. I think for me, and I hope for anyone who's listening to us today. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say that your net worth is your network. I'm saying like that's a rich person's way of saying it. That's
Who
that's
said
Buddha in a polo shirt. You know what I
that? That's what you heard me say. I'm like, who said that? Jay-Z? Somebody said that. Somebody in a
mean?
polo shirt, in a pink polo shirt with the collar up. You know what I'm saying? Somebody said.
Laughter is good. It's part
Oh
of the
yeah.
program. I tease my children sometimes. Oh, I didn't want to. Oh gosh, I forgot to ask you about being a family man now and a father. How's that impacted your writing, your poetry, or just your life?
Oh yeah. I thought like, just when you think the well is dry, parenting. Man, I have so many. Some of my favorite pieces come from parenting as well. Like I have this piece called "Carry On." It's inspired by M83. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the group M83, and they have this piece. I think it's called "Intro." And I remember being in a trance, just like spinning around with my son, my firstborn, and being in a trance, listening to M83 and writing that piece. And it's one of my favorite pieces. It's such a short piece, but yeah, parenting has definitely added more depth to my poetry, for sure. I know Michael went off a mute a few times as well. I definitely want to let him like jump in.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, certainly, you sharing that piece Oh man, I identify with it so much. I mean, I feel like this is kind of the experience I've had with autonomy. It's one in which it's been, you know, traveling through an understanding of perception and really kind of, Pablo, my love and respect for you just increases every time you open your mouth. And, you know, again, I think it's doubled here in just the past hour. So Lee, really, you know how to pull it out of people, Lee. Doing such a great job. And, but I just want to say that to me, that, you know, that picture at the beginning, the cave, it is such that, you know, it is that, you know, Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave. And to some degree, you know, like technology is really kind of, they're like leading us into another cave, because I was reading a book by Jim Quick, Limitless, and he was talking about the supervillains of learning, you know, is really like technologies, like information overload and distraction, you know, I can't remember what the other one is, dementia, you know, where it's taking your brain's functions that you would normally use and you know, making you lazy in regard to those things. But I feel like that's what you're conveying in that introduction, is kind of that discovery of, oh man, this, you know, the game is rigged against me, and I've got to get my head out of my ass and, you know, start looking around and figuring this out. And it is really about, you know, number one, making that decision for yourself, but then also talking to other people, because that just accelerates it so much. And like I said, I have learned so much from this group in this past year. You know, I felt like I did 50 years of like figuring out the point to where I'm, you know, at least somewhat understanding myself. And then, wow, this whole thing, you know, blows up in my face. And I feel like, wow, I've just learned so much through your guys' experiences, and the fact that you're talking about it and I get to experience that. It truly does make a difference. And, you know, what you're communicating is things that, you know, people struggle with for decades, because they don't know how to communicate, you know, or express themselves in a way that, you know, because I'm telling you, the poetry, for example, is something that for me, that's a way that I did not understand how to communicate up until this year, you know, until I met you and you inspired me. And now it's just it's a piece of, I was just looking at, I kind of catalog my journal. So when I get done with the notebook, I go through it. I've got so many, you know, poems in there. And this is like the first time I've written poems since probably like 6th grade, you know, because they made me do it then, you know. But, you know, I was just looking through that, and there's I haven't even gone through half of the journal yet, and I'm like up to 30 poems, you know, of different things that, and it seems to me like it's just, it's such an easy way for me to convey some of the ideas that have been stuck in my head for so long.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah,
That's
just
I'm thrilled and honored that I could even inspire. That's like the ultimate gift, you know. That's why, you know, artists and you know, people like myself do that, to inspire people to do that. And I remember like having the conversations with you where it was like you didn't think you were fit, you know, and that was obviously, you know, a wrong. And I like what you said earlier in regards to the acceleration. You know, that was such a good word, because I feel like in this last year, just being in this community, like I did like, I took a limitless pill and was able to accelerate, you know, my 1 year in like several lifetimes. Like crazy the amount of growth I was able to do. And it's because I was able to share different bandwidth with other people and like see their experience. And it's just an amazing enlightenment experience. And you know, I'm so humbled, and I really appreciate um being able to share and receive, you know, having that dynamic of receive, you know, transmission and reception.
Well, I'll just end with, to me, the fact that, you've kind of demonstrated, you've been a great example, you know, like in this interview, for example. I mean, just the way that you've been very upfront and straightforward about who you are and where you're at and what you've gone through. To me, that's such a strength of character. But what, in that regard, what is it that like you really hold dearest about yourself in regard to your own character?
Great question.
That's a really good question. Um, Let me ponder on that for a second. I hope deep about my character. Um, and I may never get this question right each time I answer it. You know what I mean? Like there might be a different answer every time, but I think for this round, I'd like to say there is this spirit inside of me, you know, that um, wants to, you know, go with the flow and change, you know, change. And it's just this urgency, spirit of urgency. So I do respect whatever experience I went through in the past lifetimes, because I feel like it has given me this tenacity and this urgency to date, you know. So like I definitely don't think this was my first, you know, like we preface this show, this is not my first rodeo. I feel like I've been here many times, and I think this time I've taken a lot of lessons, and I feel like I'm now ready to expand, so to speak. So to answer that question, um I appreciate the experiences because it has led me to where I'm at now. 100%. I remember. I'm starting to remember. Great question, man. That was solid.
Okay. Last night, getting ready for, trying to sleep. I have difficulty sleeping when I know I got a show coming up the next day, but I couldn't. And so I wrote something down. The title of this piece is Khaliq Sim. When all we know is how to cut, the whole world bleeds. And that is why Mitose, the Grand Master, told us to look for the similarities. Now I'm interested in discovering a thing via its essence so that I may greet it properly. Khaliq Sim, have you ever wanted to be a hip hop legend? I know you're an author, a father, a lover, a son, a brother. In my sky, you're a legend. I'll leave that there.
Ooh, wow, that was beautiful, man. That's this is why I was so thrilled to be on here, man, for sure. Because I know it's just such a beautiful exchange. As far as the hip hop thing, my brother does that, so I'm gonna let him hold that. You know what I mean? My brother THC Baby Marley, that's his rap name. Um, but that was beautiful, man. Thank you for that.
There's no greater thing I think a poet can do than inspire other people to have that in their own lives, right? I'm so glad you found that for yourself and for all the people that you've connected with. I'm so happy to know that today was like the premiere of Khaliq Sim. by interviews, so to speak. That's so cool. That's so cool, man. And I'm really looking forward to you to knowing how your next book goes and hearing more about your journey. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. And I was really interested in you and in your story. I've always really enjoyed interacting with you and seeing the positive effect that you have on other people. Um, it's just great. I feel like another dream come true having you on this my tiny little podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite, and thank you guys for tuning in, and for everyone in the chat. And yo, Owen, man, you did a fantastic job. Co-pilot, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I learned from the best.
Right on. Thank you, all our guests. This is episode 10 of Love and Support Sessions, because we all need love and support. And regardless of where you are on your own journey or your own path, please remember you can always come home to your human family and that you are never truly lost, especially when you decide that it's time to find your way and you look or you start to pay attention to that light that maybe is going to lead your feet on the way that you need to go to continue your journey, maybe to find some peace and maybe some love and I'm sure some more support.